Free casting. I'm going to be covering all forms of free casting, starting from the simplest to the more complicated one. So, the simpler one involves using the staff. The way this works is very simple. You right-click to cast a staff, you switch over to a different spell. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be a scroll, it can be anything. It just has to not be on this anymore. And the timing on this is not very tight at all. It's actually very, very lenient. So it looks like this. You right-click, you switch to a spell. I'm gonna switch this to Mana Shield. I'll do both. Mana Shield and Stone Curse, just to show you that there is no difference. So right-click, switch. 118. So right-click, switch. Right-click, switch. Right-click, switch. Right-click, switch. In fact, the timing is so lenient, you could actually cast twice and then switch. Right-click twice, switch. Right-click twice, switch. That's how lenient that is. The second one involves scrolls. So the way the scrolls work involves what you might hear the term scroll walking. That's what this is. So the way this works is you have the time frame of one whole tile. The time it takes you to move from this tile to this tile. I already have a video on this one, but I'm going to kind of cover this again. Just a little bit faster. So you have the time frame that goes from this tile to this tile. And that's it. Which in this game is 8 frames or 0.4 seconds. So the time frame to do this. Now the way it works is you move, you left click to move, you right click, and then you pick up the scroll. And you will cast this scroll without consuming it. So I'm going to put the mouse cursor down here so it makes it easier for me to do it. I will left click, I will move the cursor down here, pick this up, and then right click. That didn't work too well. Itchy finger. Like that. There you go. Same thing. I do not have the firewall spell. It was the only scroll I had. Now there's a slightly faster way of doing this. Or, not faster. A slightly easier way of doing this, although it's not faster, but it's much safer. And that is, in single player, you have this fun little feature called the menu. Oh. You can pause abuse. So if you want to cast a firewall, you left click, you right click, you press escape. This allows you to do this. Move your mouse cursor wherever you want, get it nice and positioned, and then pick stuff up. So you press escape, pick it up, just like that. You can do the same thing with this staff. There's really no need to, though, because of what I showed you previously, but you can still do it. This way, however, carries a risk with it of you accidentally soft-locking yourself. Which I will not go into. Just know that it is more risky if you do that. So yeah, I don't recommend trying it that way. There's already the other way where you just simply do this, which is just faster. Now the third way is the newest way. We have figured out a way to actually cast spells without consuming the mana. Here is the problem with this method. It is frame perfect. It's so frame perfect, in fact, it makes duping look easy. So if I can do this right, the way it works, same thing basically. You right click, you switch over to a different spell. Very simple. But you have to right click and then immediately switch the spell on the same frame. So it looks, let's see how many attempts it takes to get this right. Doesn't take any, apparently. Apparently I'm just that goddamn good. 106. Cost me no mana. And I have Mana Shield. Now if I were to go back and do that again, just right click, I consume 33 mana. If you're too slow, Like that. Like, that's how tight that time framing is. Really difficult to do, but there is a simpler way to do it, and this involves using the loading screens. So, as you pass through a loading screen, you have right about here where you can buffer inputs. And the thing is, the game will actually take those inputs and will buffer them onto the same frame, therefore activating the frame perfect trick. So as it gets to that point, you right-click, you switch to a different spell, and it will actually cast it, activating the frame perfect trick. So it would look like this. I will use Mana Shield again, 106 mana. I will switch over to the Stone Curse scroll. Right-click switch. And just like that. Makes it so much easier. There is a caveat, however, and that is it all depends on what you switch over to. So, for example, go back down there. There are some bats right on the other side of this door. If I were to go down with Stone Curse on, right-click that, and then switch to Mana Shield, well, what would happen? Whoops. Itchy finger. I just cast Stone Curse. I did not consume the scroll. And I don't even have the spell. In fact, the book is right there. And yet, I consumed 60 mana. Why 60 mana? Because that is how much mana this level spell 1 of Stone Curse costs. Proven by the fact that if I read this right now, 60. If I right-click, it'll bring me back down from 136 to 76. That is why. So even though you are switching in this manner, you can still end up accidentally costing resources of whatever the scroll is. So for example, if I were to switch, instead of Stone Curse, if I were to use this Identify scroll, start with Identify, because as we know, the Identify book does not exist. Therefore, ideally it should cost no mana, right? Let's find out. Well, it turns out the Identify spell does actually cost mana. Or, you know what I mean. And it's 13. But, there's my ID scroll. Never consumed it. So you gotta be careful with this. If I were to put it onto the phasing staff with the charges, if I were to switch from the Mana Shield spell to the phasing staff, it would actually consume charges off the staff. Like such. I will not consume mana, but I will consume the charges. So you gotta be careful with this. So what is the one thing that you have, though, that has infinite resources? Well, that's your skill. Your skill is an infinite resource. As such, in, let's say, any percent runs, you might see someone immediately at the beginning of a run number their skill. Because this allows you to switch over to the skill consuming no charges every single time. Still, no charges consumed. I could even come through with this on. Not that one. Identify skill? Identify scroll, rather. And I did not consume the scroll. Or charges, no mana, no nothing. Because I have an infinite skill that I can use. So there you go. This obviously is not specific to Sorcerer. This applies to every class. In this case, this skill happens to be Staff Recharge. But this applies to every class. Every character can do this. Nobody is special.